Life rarely sends you an invitation before it sends you a storm. One day, everything feels steady. The next, the ground underneath your feet trembles with change. You didn't see it coming. A loss, a betrayal, a delay, a diagnosis, a collapse. It's as if life whispered, "You had no idea what was coming." But here's what we often overlook. What shocks us doesn't surprise God. It's easy to panic when your plans unravel, but hidden within those disruptions are signs, clear, divine markers, that prove you are not forsaken. You're being fortified, so let's uncover 5 unmistakable signs that show, even in your worst moments, God will never fail you. Life is often most honest when it's most unfair. It's in the moments we least expect, the layoffs, the betrayals, the illnesses, the missed opportunities, that we are handed the greatest invitations to grow. Unseen adversity is like a surprise teacher that walks in without knocking. It doesn't ask if you're ready, it assumes that you must be. But while the initial impact feels like destruction, what it often leads to is construction, of character, of resilience, and of deeper awareness. There is a paradox here. The things we never saw coming are often the things that shape us most. No one asks for hardship, but everyone respects those who endure it well. And it is precisely in the moments of unexpected pain and disruption that your inner strength begins to speak. Quietly at first, but firmly. Adversity has a way of unmasking everything artificial. What's left after the shaking is what's real. You begin to realize that comfort didn't make you grow. Discomfort did. Ease never deepened your faith. Difficulty did. Your surface self may panic when life turns upside down, but your deeper self, the one molded by trial, begins to emerge. The strength you are building in adversity is not loud. It's not something you can always see in the mirror. It's the quiet discipline of showing up when no one claps. It's making a decision to keep going even when logic says quit. It's saying yes to the next breath when everything in you wants to shut down. That kind of strength doesn't get headlines, but it rewrites destinies. You often don't realize you're being strengthened while you're being stretched. The weight of adversity feels like it's meant to crush, but it's actually meant to condition. Like resistance training in a gym, the heaviness you face in life doesn't mean you're being punished. It means you're being prepared. Every tear, every setback, every silence where you hoped for answers. These are the training grounds where unshakable strength is formed. What makes this strength unshakable is not just the pain endured, but the perspective gained. As you walk through difficulty, your lens begins to change. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What am I supposed to see through this?" The questions shift from protest to purpose. You no longer fear hard things because you've seen what they reveal in you. You're no longer intimidated by storms because you've survived enough of them to know that they pass, and you remain. Unseen adversity also strips away illusions. It exposes where your identity was tied to comfort, people, or outcomes. It peels back the need for approval and teaches you to stand on truth rather than applause. When what you leaned on is taken away, you discover a core within you that cannot be touched. Something deeply rooted, something divine. That part of you was always there, but it was hidden under layers of ease and certainty. Adversity doesn't create this part of you. It reveals it. And here's the transformational truth. What shocked you yesterday becomes your strength tomorrow. What felt like chaos in one chapter becomes clarity in the next. The betrayal that broke your heart turns into the boundary that saves your soul. The delay that frustrated you becomes the divine detour that preserved you. Over time, you begin to trust the process, not because it's painless, but because it's purposeful. Your unshakable strength isn't the absence of emotion or fragility. It's your decision to keep standing even when you're shaking. It's your willingness to rebuild after the breakdown, to love after the loss, to hope after the hurt. Strength looks like showing up when it would be easier to shut down. It's being anchored not in circumstance, but in conviction. When adversity is unseen, it feels cruel, but when its work is done, it becomes sacred. You begin to look back and see that the valley wasn't the end, it was the path. And while the journey may have broken your pride, it built your purpose. You emerge not with ease, but with endurance. not with a life untouched by pain, but a spirit untouched by defeat. It's easy to believe that God is present when everything is going well, when prayers are answered, relationships are thriving, and doors are opening. But the real test of faith happens in the silence. It's in the long pauses, the unreturned cries, the closed doors, and the delayed answers that you begin to question. Is God still there? What many fail to realize is that God's silence is not his absence. In fact, the quiet seasons are often the most sacred. They are the moments when God is working the deepest, not in front of you, but within you. In the storm, everything feels unstable. Life spins, the future blurs, and nothing makes sense. But even in that chaos, there are subtle signs of divine presence. The storm does not mean God has walked away. It means he's allowing conditions to reveal what could never be seen in calm waters. It's easy to confuse discomfort with abandonment. But if you pay attention, there's a deeper undercurrent moving quietly beneath the noise, a steady hand guiding the chaos. God's faithfulness does not always manifest in the spectacular. It often shows up in the mundane. The strength to get out of bed after heartbreak, the breath in your lungs after nights of crying, the provision that came just when you had nothing left. These are not coincidences, they are divine fingerprints. Even when nothing is going the way you planned, God's presence is never absent. It's just operating in a realm you cannot yet perceive. In silence, you develop spiritual hearing. When the noise of life fades and answers don't come, you're left with stillness. And in that stillness, something happens. You begin to hear not with your ears, but with your heart. You recognize the sustaining voice that says, "Keep going," even when you feel like giving up. That whisper of endurance, that isn't your willpower, it's grace. It's God speaking not in volume, but in presence. Storms also strip away the superficial. They remove the things you thought you needed in order to believe. When relationships end, jobs are lost, and health declines, you're left with one raw question. What do I truly believe when nothing is certain? In that moment, faith stops being a theory and becomes your anchor. And when you come through the storm, you realize something profound. God didn't fail you. He sustained you in a way you didn't understand at the time. There is also a hidden faithfulness in the delay. We often assume that waiting is wasted time. But in God's kingdom, waiting is not passive. It is preparatory. When you think nothing is happening, God is aligning people, timing, opportunities, and your own heart. What looks like stagnation is often divine synchronization. You are not just waiting for the promise to come. The promise is waiting for you to be ready. God's delays are deliberate, not careless. He is never in a hurry, but always on time. Faithfulness is also evident in hindsight. When you look back, what once felt like abandonment is now clearly protection. That relationship you prayed to keep, that opportunity you begged to have, that situation you wanted to force, all of it makes sense in reverse. You see that if God had answered your request on your timeline, it would have hurt more than it helped. What felt like a no was actually a not yet, or even better, a not for you. That's faithfulness disguised as disappointment. God's character does not change with your circumstances. Storms may rise, seasons may shift, but his nature remains consistent. He is the same in your darkest valley as he is on your brightest mountain. And that unchanging presence is what becomes your stability. While people may leave, circumstances may change, and life may surprise you, there is one constant. He does not fail. The longer you walk with God, the more you realize that feelings are unreliable, but faith is unshakable. You may not always feel him, but you can trust him. You may not see the outcome yet, but you've seen enough of his track record to believe he's still writing the story. In silence, he refines your trust. In storms, he strengthens your foundation, and in all of it, he proves one thing over and over again. Even when you don't understand his methods, you can trust his heart. Because faith isn't about always having answers. Faith is about always knowing who is still in control. There are moments in life when you find yourself enrolled in a classroom you never signed up for. The lessons are painful, The tests are silent, and there's no option to drop the course. This kind of education doesn't come from books or lectures. It comes from loss, disappointment, heartbreak, uncertainty, betrayal, and unexpected changes. These lessons feel like punishment at first, but in reality, they are preparation. You didn't choose these lessons, but they are exactly the ones you needed to learn. Life has a way of introducing you to truths you never asked for. You discover who your real friends are not through compliments, but through conflict. You learn what truly matters not during celebration, but during collapse. You understand your own strength, not when everything goes according to plan, but when everything falls apart and you're still standing. These are the uninvited teachers: grief, failure, rejection, isolation. And though they speak in harsh tones, their wisdom is unmatched. The lessons you never chose often become the most permanent. That's because pain etches truth into the deepest parts of you. A disappointment can teach you discernment. A setback can instill patience. A betrayal can teach you boundaries. These truths stay with you, not because you read them, but because you lived them. The experience becomes the message, and that message becomes part of your wisdom, part of your voice, part of your purpose. Growth rarely comes wrapped in comfort. The transformation you desire is often hidden in the tension you avoid. We often say we want to be stronger, wiser, more grounded, but then resist the very circumstances that produce those qualities. The lessons you didn't choose are often the only way God could get your attention. He's not being cruel, He's being intentional. There are things about your calling, your identity, and your destiny that can only be developed under pressure. You might not understand the value of what you're going through while you're in it. You may resent it. You may ask, why me? Or what did I do to deserve this? But the truth is, some lessons are not punishments for something you did. They're preparation for something you've yet to face. God often teaches in reverse. He equips you before He explains. He prepares your character before He reveals your next chapter. There's something deeply sacred about being forced to confront what you never wanted to deal with. It makes you examine your motives, your identity, your faith, and your priorities. The lesson may come in the form of loss, but what you gain is perspective. You start to see what really matters. You realize how much you've been relying on people or outcomes to define your peace. When those things are stripped away, you're left with the truth, and often that truth sets you free. Sometimes the lesson is not about others at all, it's about you. It's about confronting your pride, your need for control, your hidden fears, your insecurities. These lessons are uncomfortable because they expose the areas where you've been pretending or avoiding. But exposure is not meant to shame you, it's meant to heal you. You can't fix what you won't face. And often, the lesson you never wanted becomes the very doorway to emotional, spiritual, and even relational transformation. The process of learning what you never chose is rarely quick. It unfolds over time. You may go through seasons where you feel stuck, confused, or even angry. That's okay. Progress doesn't always look like movement. It often looks like endurance. Staying in the process, even when it hurts, is a victory. And in that process, something powerful is happening beneath the surface. You're not just surviving, you're evolving. And one day, the lesson becomes clear. You'll look back and realize that what felt like random pain was actually strategic development. The moment you never would have picked ended up producing a strength, a depth, a vision, and a purpose you could have never manufactured in comfort. The part of your life that once felt like a detour becomes the foundation for everything that follows. So yes, you're learning lessons you never chose, but they are building something in you that ease never could. And when the lesson is fully learned, you won't just be wiser. You'll be ready. There are few things more frustrating than waiting, especially when you've prayed, planned, prepared, and hoped with everything inside you. You believed it was the right time, the right opportunity, the right answer, and then, silence, nothing moves. Doors don't open, progress doesn't come. Instead of acceleration, you meet stillness, Instead of confirmation, you meet resistance. Delay enters the picture, and with it comes doubt. Delay is deceptive because it often disguises itself as denial. When something doesn't happen on your timeline, your first thought is that it's not going to happen at all. You begin to wonder if your prayer was wrong, if your dream was too big, or if you heard God incorrectly. The longer the delay, the louder the lies. You start interpreting the silence as abandonment, the wait as punishment, and the stillness as rejection. But delay is not always no, it's often not yet. In God's divine order, timing is just as important as purpose. A blessing given too soon can be a burden. A door opened before you're ready can expose more than it protects. God isn't just concerned about giving you what you ask for. He's concerned about preparing you for what you're asking for. The delay may feel like an obstacle, but it's actually a shield. It's not meant to harm you. It's meant to shape you. There's a refinement that happens in delay. It's in the waiting that motives are purified. What you wanted for validation, you now desire for purpose. What you thought would define you, you now see as a tool for serving others. Delay strips away the ego and brings clarity to intention. It forces you to ask, why do I really want this? And more importantly, am I ready for what I'm asking for? Often, the delay isn't about God getting the blessing ready for you. It's about God getting you ready for the blessing. In the middle of delay, faith is tested. Not the kind of faith that simply believes in good outcomes, but the kind that trusts God's character regardless of the outcome. It's one thing to believe when you see progress. It's another to believe when there's no visible evidence that anything is working. That's where real trust is born, faith in the face of silence, hope in the midst of uncertainty, trust without the need for immediate answers. Delay also teaches dependence. When things don't happen quickly, you stop relying on your schedule, your logic, and your performance. You begin to lean in, not just into prayer, but into surrender. You release control because you're forced to. And in that surrender, you often find something more valuable than the thing you were waiting for. You find peace. Peace that doesn't come from arrival, but from alignment. You begin to trust not just what God is doing, but how and when He chooses to do it. Sometimes the delay isn't about you at all. There are other pieces in motion, other people being prepared, other situations that need alignment. You are not the only part of the promise. What you don't see behind the scenes are the divine connections, the timing of resources, and the transformation in others that all play a role in what you're waiting for. God's plan is never isolated. It's always interconnected. And so, when He delays something for you, it may be for the benefit of someone else too. The beauty of divine delay is that it always comes with purpose. Nothing is wasted. Every day you feel like nothing is happening is actually a day something is happening within you. Perseverance is growing. Patience is developing. Humility is deepening. Gratitude is maturing. And when the fulfillment finally comes, when the promise meets the right moment, you'll realize it was worth the wait. Not just because of what you received, but because of who you became in the process. Delay that feels like denial is one of the hardest seasons to endure, but it's often the very place where faith matures, trust solidifies, and character is refined. The silence is not a sign of neglect. The waiting room is not a holding cell, it's a training ground. God is never late. He's just working on a timeline that sees farther than you can. And when the time is right, what was delayed will not be denied. We often associate peace with resolution. We imagine peace will come when the conflict is over, when the diagnosis is clear, when the financial crisis is resolved, or when the answers finally arrive. But real peace isn't found at the finish line, it's forged in the fire. Peace that only exists at the end of a trial is circumstantial. True peace, the kind that sustains you, is experienced in the middle, when nothing makes sense and the outcome is still unknown. The middle is the hardest place to be. It's the space between what God promised and what you're currently experiencing. It's the gap between your prayers and His answers. The middle is filled with questions, uncertainty, and the haunting silence of not knowing what comes next. And yet, it's in that very place, the unresolved, unhealed, unfinished stretch, where God offers peace not as a result, but as a companion. Peace in the middle is a different kind of peace. It's not based on clarity. It's not based on timing. It's based on trust. You don't have all the details, but you know who holds them. You're not sure how it will work out, but you're convinced you're not alone. That kind of peace isn't loud. It's quiet, it's steady. It settles in your spirit even while the storm rages around you. God doesn't wait until your circumstances are perfect to offer you peace. He offers it during the storm, not after it. Remember when Jesus was in the boat with his disciples during a raging sea, he didn't prevent the storm. He slept in it. His calm was not ignorance, it was assurance. He wasn't unaware of the danger. They were just aware of his authority. That's what peace in the middle looks like. It's not the absence of chaos. It's the presence of confidence in something greater than the chaos. The world teaches you to chase peace through control. If you manage everything right, you'll have peace. But kingdom peace comes through surrender. The more you try to control the outcome, the more anxious you become. But the moment you release your grip and surrender the process, peace flows. Not because everything is fixed, but because you're no longer carrying the pressure to fix it. Peace in the middle also redefines your perspective. When you're not anxious about the outcome, you start noticing things you would have missed otherwise. You begin to see small blessings, strength you didn't know you had, people who show up in quiet ways, moments of clarity in the fog. Peace in the middle doesn't just comfort, it awakens you. It makes you aware that even in the mess there is meaning. Even in the tension there is transformation. Another aspect of peace in the middle is emotional steadiness. You may still feel grief, frustration, confusion, or fear. Peace doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means those feelings don't control you. You may cry, but you're not crushed. You may bend, but you're not broken. You may question, but you're not consumed by doubt. Peace doesn't remove the storm, it anchors you in it. Sometimes peace is not a feeling. It's a decision. You wake up and choose to trust even when nothing is changing. You choose to believe that God is working, even when you can't see the progress. You decide not to rehearse worst-case scenarios, but to rest in God's faithfulness. That decision doesn't always come with immediate emotional relief, but over time, it builds spiritual muscle. You become grounded, not in what you see, but in what you know to be true. Peace in the middle also protects your relationships. When you carry internal calm, you stop projecting your panic onto others. You stop blaming, attacking, or isolating. You become a safe space not just for yourself, but for the people around you. Your peace becomes contagious. Others may be stressed by the same situation, but your demeanor shifts the atmosphere. That's not personality, it's presence, and it's evidence of a peace that passes understanding. The greatest irony of peace in the middle is this. When you stop demanding closure before you feel calm, you actually reach closure faster. Why? Because peace makes you receptive. It opens your mind to guidance, softens your heart to patience, and aligns your spirit with purpose. You stop rushing and start listening. You stop forcing and start flowing. And eventually, the end comes, not as a rescue, but as a reward for how you walked through the middle. Peace is not the prize at the end of a hard season. Peace is the provision that carries you through it.